Since the inception of SpaceX 2 decades ago, the multi-billion-dollar company has been interested in the concept of starting a new civilization on another planet. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has made this mission his top priority and has picked Mars as the perfect habitat for the next race of humans. At first, many people, including scientists, thought this was a crazy idea, but as plans kicked into progress, it started to look like a real possibility. However, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has made a discovery that is set to change all of Elon Musk's plans for the planet. What discovery did the space agency make, and how would these discoveries affect Elon Musk's mission to the Red Planet? Join us as we explore the massive discovery made by NASA that will change everything in Musk's plans. Elon Musk, as we know him, is a very smart visionary. His plan to colonize Mars has been at the top of his list since his company's establishment. His company is not showing any signs of giving up, as several machines are being constructed to facilitate this mission. The SpaceX CEO has just one goal attached to the mission: to create a self-sustaining city on the Red Planet. This city would be big enough to accommodate 1 million people and could transform humanity into becoming a multi-planetary species. Although Musk says this vision will be actualized by 2029, the mission to Mars will likely keep him occupied for the next 3 decades. Musk stated why he and his team are working hard to achieve this aim. He explained the company's February 2022 Starship Progress update, saying it would be an important achievement for the future of life itself. We have lived on Earth for centuries, and the situation of global warming and all forms of pollution are happening across the Earth's surface. This is why Musk stated that there is a probability that something bad might happen on Earth. If it does happen, his plans will solve any looming danger. Also, talking about this plan is enough to excite the people, as they know the plan aims to build a groundbreaking legacy. Musk said at the conference, "Life can't just be about solving problems. There have to be things that inspire you, that move your heart. When you wake up in the morning, these things will make you excited about what lies ahead in the future." Initially, space enthusiasts expected Musk to have completed the project and sent the first set of humans to Mars by the mid-2020s. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But to their surprise, Musk announced on his Twitter page that colonizing the Red Planet will likely be actualized by sometime in 2029. He revealed this when he posted a picture of astronauts standing on the Red Planet. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has also been researching Mars for decades, and NASA discovered that there is radiation in Mars's atmosphere which could hinder Musk's plans to colonize the Martian soil. This is one of the reasons why the space agency has not been able to send astronauts to Mars, because the radiation in the atmosphere would be harmful to the astronauts. When they had to find out more about the Red Planet, NASA opted for rovers to explore the Martian surface instead. With NASA's Curiosity rover exploring the Red Planet, the rover's radiation assessment detector instrument found out that there are 2 forms of radiation. One of the radiation forms is the galactic cosmic rays, GCRs. These rays are particles caused by supernova explosions and other high-energy events outside the solar system. The other form of radiation is solar energetic particles associated with solar flares and mass ejections from the sun. These forms of radiation pose potential health risks to astronauts and people who intend to live on the Red Planet. 3 months after the Curiosity rover landed in an area named the Gale Crater, a team of international researchers processed data from over 20 atmospheric events in the region. These events had at least a sign of a whirlwind happening, and the River Environmental Monitoring Station instrument recorded it, REMS. These signs included a brief dip in air pressure, a change in wind speed, a rise in air temperature, a change in wind direction, or a dip in ultraviolet light reaching the rover. Of all the events recorded, 2 of the events displayed all 5 characteristics, so it would be sad if we had to move from Earth to Mars only to get there and wear radiation suits for protection. That would be a total bummer. Regardless, Musk has already mapped out his plans. He explained in detail what the city on Mars would be like, noting that his colonization of the Red Planet would start with building a full-sized urban city. This city would be one that every human would have access to live and work in, just like we do here on Earth. It wouldn't be open to just scientists and researchers, but those willing to move from Earth to Mars that have the opportunity to pay for their flight with a loan. When they get there, these people can pay off the loan by working in facilities from pizzerias to iron foundries. However, Musk speculated that there would be labor shortages for a while, and hopefully These two documents by Starlink and the 1967 treaty would be set on something other than a collision course. The city would be able to rule itself on its terms, as the Starlink Internet Terms and Conditions stated when released in October 2020. But this contradicts the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which states that the launch origin country would be responsible for all other space activities. So according to the 1967 treaty, it means that the United States would be the one to govern the Red Planet. In 2019, Musk proposed it would require 1 million tons of cargo to construct a self-sustaining city on Mars. And if it costs $100,000 to transport cargo to Mars, that will peg the city's total price to about $100 billion. In the end, it would cost approximately $10 trillion. It is also likely that SpaceX will continue colonization with more than one city. The principal Mars development engineer, Paul Worcester, mentioned this at the 21st Annual International Mars Society Convention in August 2022. He said that the idea is to stand out, start with not just an outpost, but grow into a larger base. Not just like there is in Antarctica, but a village, a town growing into a city, and then multiple cities on Mars. But would having multiple cities on Mars be a good idea? NASA's second discovery doesn't think so. The National Aeronautic and Space Administration has already discovered that there is no liquid water available. So how would the multiple cities created by Elon Musk live without water? Although an underwater river and water ice were found, more is needed to sustain all the cities. Besides, the modern Mars atmosphere is not encouraging either. The atmosphere is too thin to make a steady flow of water possible, even though it was like this in the planet's early history. The Curiosity rover saw evidence that ancient Mars had a diverse environment with liquid water. Some of the rocks and pebbles found at the Gale crater by the Curiosity rover showed an ancient streambed running on the Martian surface. This is the first time such rocks have been found, as they are unique rocks that contain streambed gravel. The sizes and shapes of the gravels embedded in these mixed rocks, especially from the size of sand particles, gave suspicions. This led the researchers at NASA to do more research about the water that once flowed at this location. A lead reporter at the Planetary Science Institute in Tucson, Rebecca Williams, explained the tests on the rocks in the team's science journal. We completed more rigorous quantification of the outcrops to characterize the size distribution and roundness of the pebbles and sand that make up these conglomerates, said Williams. She concluded they ended up with a calculation in the same range as their previous estimate. This estimate meant that the stream flowed at speed equal to a walking pace. Simply put, it could have been a meter or moving at 3 feet per second, and when its depths were measured, it was calculated that the streambed was likely ankle deep to hip deep. The 3 pavement-like rocks were examined with Curiosity rover's mast camera during its first 40 days on the Red Planet. The first rock, Goulburn, was found immediately adjacent to the rover's landing area. Link and Hotter were found 50 and 100 meters southeast of the rover's touchdown site. As researchers investigated the Link rock, they used the rover's laser shooting chemistry and ChemCam instrument to study the rock efficiently. The rock looked exactly like streambed deposits on Earth, likened to rounded river pebbles that are usually thrown to skip across water when you go camping. It is safe to say that discovering something this familiar in another world must have been intriguing. The researchers also noticed that the larger pebbles were distributed unevenly in the conglomerate rock. When Hotter was studied, researchers noticed alternating pebble-rich layers and sand layers. This is very common on streambed deposits on Earth and provided more evidence that there was an actual stream flow on Mars. The researchers also noticed that most pebbles were frequently in contact, hitting each other. This showed that they rolled along the bed of a stream as water flowed on the Martian surface. In the new report, Sanjeev Gupta of Imperial College London commented that their analysis of the number of round pebbles gave further information about them. He noted that the roundness of each pebble was no mistake. It indicated a maintained flow. It occurred as the pebbles hit each other multiple times, extending the flow to more than weeks or months, although we can't say exactly how long. With these discoveries, researchers proposed that the stream probably carried the gravel at least a few miles or kilometers. Despite the fact that the atmosphere of modern Mars is too thin to make a sustained streambed, researchers confirmed that the formation of these round pebbles must have been from ancient Mars. Despite their confirmation, only some of the 3 rocks that NASA's Curiosity rover found could explain the type of stream flow information. Still, the images of these conglomerate rocks indicated that the atmosphere at Gale Crater once gave room for the flow of liquid water on the red planet. Researchers will continue using Curiosity's science instruments to review the environmental history in Gale Crater on Mars, as that was the same location where the rover found evidence of ancient microbial life. And Elon Musk is not slowing down on his plans to Mars soon, because he has passed across his mission statement about why he wants to build a city on Mars. When asked, he stated just one sentence: to transform humanity into a multi-planetary species. As each year went by, Musk has given reasons why humanity is meant to spread across the universe. In all of these reasons, he mentions a common factor. This factor is that a life-ending event on Earth could be the entire end of the human race, but this can be prevented if a new base for human living is set up on another planet, a planet like Mars. In November 2021, Musk tweeted that Earth is 4.5 billion years old and life is still not multi-planetary. He tweeted further that the amount of time left to make this change is still being determined, as we are still determining what might happen next. Simply put, it could be a worse climate change or a surprise meteor strike that would wipe out humanity. In February 2022, Musk mentioned that a reason for humanity to expand is because we are life's guardians. The creatures that we love cannot build spaceships, but we can, and we can bring them with us. When he appeared back in 2021, he noted that another reason to venture into space was that humanity had barely explored space after the lunar landings. He said, "It's been almost half a century since humans were last on the moon. That's too long. We must get back there and have a permanent base on the moon. Again, like a big, permanently occupied base on the moon." He encouraged further that we could then build a city on Mars to become a spacefaring civilization, a multi-planet species. Surprisingly, the SpaceX CEO is not the first man to talk about colonizing another planet. Professor Stephen Hawking mentioned it in 2017. Hawking stated that humans would have to create ways for expansion within 100 years if the human race wanted to keep thriving. But some people do not subscribe to Hawking's and Musk's ideas. Astrophysicist Martin Rees said in response to Hawking's theory and Musk's vision, he said that the idea was a dangerous delusion and that dealing with Earth's climate change is more convenient than turning Mars into our new home. Still, Musk isn't moving on with his plan, and the main gear for his mission to Mars is the Starship. The Starship is a fully reusable rocket still in development in Texas. This would be the unique rocket that would be used to convey humans and cargo to Mars. The spacecraft runs on liquid oxygen and methane as fuel instead of the rocket propellant used in the Falcon 9. This innovation means that the Starship can be flown to Mars. Once there, it can refuel using resources found on the planet and fly back to Earth easily. The spaceship's flexibility also allows astronauts to explore space and build a planet-hopping network of refueling stations. SpaceX intends to build a fleet of 1,000 Starships for 10 years to send 1 million people to Mars by 2050. This is valid because to create a self-sustaining city on Mars, 1,000 ships or more needs to be available for all occasions. There have been some tests on the Starship while it was constructed, but the space jet still needs to be perfected. The space agency has been quite slow in completing the Starship's Raptor engines, which might pose a risk soon during its launch. There were also some issues with the Starship's landing during its prototype testing. The rocket broke apart into a thick fog just as it was about to touch down. These might tend to be an issue on its journey to Mars. Because of recent research, Mars's landscape is pretty wild, and astronauts might face frustrating issues such as dust collecting on solar panels and tiny Mars rocks. These tiny rocks have been seen to have caused problems with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Curiosity mission. These could be among the factors that might hinder Musk's vision to colonize Mars. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration continued their research on the Red Planet, and they saw possible clues to what changed the atmosphere on Mars. Due to the present atmosphere of Mars being 100 times thinner than Earth's, they tried to see what happened to the Martian atmosphere, so it would help scientists check whether the planet was ever habitable. Scientific instruments aboard the rover gathered samples of the atmosphere near the Rock Nest site in Gale Crater and analyzed the samples collected. The results of the sample analysis on Mars study baffled the scientists. The results suggested that the loss of a fraction in the atmosphere resulted from a physical process that favors the retention of heavier isotopes in certain elements. Isotopes are variants of the same element with unique atomic weights. This has been a significant factor in the planet's evolution. The initial results of this phenomenon showed an increase of 5% in heavier isotopes of carbon in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, compared to estimates of the isotope ratios present when Mars was formed. Compared to lighter isotopes, these ratios of heavier isotopes suggest that the top atmosphere has probably been lost to interplanetary space. When there are losses in the atmosphere's top, it causes a depletion in lighter isotopes. Argon isotopes also show enrichment in the heavy isotope as it matches previous estimates of atmospheric composition derived from research on Martian meteorites on Earth. With these few types of research on the Martian atmosphere, sample analysis at Mars also made the most sensitive measurements ever to search for methane gas on Mars. The first results yielded little to no methane, and as it stands, methane is of interest as it's a simple precursor chemical for life. It can be produced by biological or non-biological factors here on Earth. It's been difficult to detect methane from Earth or the current generation of Mars orbiters because the gas only exists faintly on Mars. The tunable laser spectrometer in SAM provides this molecule's first search conducted within the Martian atmosphere. The initial measurements place an upper limit of just a few parts methane per billion parts of the Martian atmosphere. It is placed by volume with enough uncertainty that the amount could be zero. Chris Webster, a lead in SAM TLS in NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, commented on the mission. He said that although they're aware methane is not an abundant gas at the Gale crater site, they are still excited to search for it. But while they determine upper limits on low values, they believe atmospheric variability in the Martian atmosphere could still hold surprises for the team. As NASA's Curiosity rover spent its first 3 months on Mars, SAM has analyzed atmosphere samples with 2 laboratory methods. One of the tests is a mass spectrometer investigating the full range of atmospheric gases, while the other method focuses on carbon dioxide and methane. During its 2-year prime mission, the rover used an instrument called gas chromatography that separates and identifies gases. The instrument also analyzes soil and rock samples and more atmosphere samples. SAM principal investigator Paul Mahaffey of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt also commented on the SAM analyses. He explained the outcome of the first atmospheric measurements, admitting that they had seen the power of having a complex chemical laboratory like SAM on the surface of Mars. He said, both atmospheric and solid sample analyses are crucial for understanding Mars's habitability. Researchers have been using Curiosity's 10 instruments to investigate whether areas in the Gale crater offer favorable environmental conditions for microbial life. The inventor who built Curiosity is JPL, a California Institute of Technology division in Pasadena. They're also responsible for managing NASA's Science Mission Directorate in Washington. The SAM instrument was developed at Goddard with important contributions from JPL and the University of Paris in France. Scientists propose that the environment on ancient Mars may have been quite different, with the possibility of the planet having a thicker atmosphere and flowing water on its surface. NASA deployed the Mars atmosphere and volatile evolution to find out more about these possible losses from the upper atmosphere. The MAVEN spacecraft has been in orbit around Mars since September 2014. Since then, the MAVEN spacecraft has provided many vital results regarding the situation. These results also included the measurements of the overall geometry and variability of the magnetosphere, upper atmosphere, and ionosphere. It also provided answers to the interplanetary coronal mass ejections and influxes of solar energetic particles. The first data regarding the outcome achieved by the MAVEN spacecraft are archived in NASA's Planetary Data System. It's also included with a special collection of papers called the Geophysical Research Letters. 4 of these GRL papers explain an overview of the results and are offered free access for a limited time. The work done by the Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution team was regarded as a remarkable achievement. As a matter of fact, exciting results from 10 new instruments were detailed in the 44 Geophysical Research Letter papers and 4 science papers. The necessary coordination takes advantage of the MAVEN team's expertise and the GRL's best practices. It also included the science publishing philosophies that are made to increase the amount of knowledge transferred to the community. This community was a huge role player in the history of the collection's creation because the huge influx of related papers demanded a diligent pool of reviewers working around GRL short turnaround times, with some pressed into service up to 3 times. This special collection set a record for a better understanding of Mars. It moves across disciplines, has a huge impact on Mars and the solar system's sciences, and the paper would be read worldwide for decades. Let us know in the comments section what you think about this discovery made by NASA.